I have Alpha Force Zero here with me. This is my kid. You guys watch my stuff for a long time. You probably know who she is. She's going to be assisting me on this one. However, she's going to be out of frame. But just know that she'll be talking. So go ahead. Let's watch Charlie Kirk debating this feminist from Cambridge.
So I'm a feminist. My question is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes.
This is such a scumbag, intentional. He's setting out to derail and invalidate her right from the start, when ultimately they pretty much agree on everything. Pretty much everybody agrees that trans men, like men who were assigned female at birth, can get pregnant. Literally every human being agrees with that. And he's about to, as you'll hear in a second, try to invalidate her opinion by making it sound like it's a completely absurd thing to say.
An adult human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
This is what I'm talking about right here. This is him trying to invalidate. Trans women can have that. Yes, of course. Obviously, he agrees with that. People who identify as women who are trans can. He's just trying to invalidate her opinion right from the start because he's a scumbag.
And a woman.
By the way, just for the record, Alpha Force Zero, you probably know this already. I'm just going to say it in case.
Okay.
I don't insult people generally. I try not to insult people. And saying he's a scumbag was kind of borderline for me. You can insult people, but I'm going to denounce it.
Okay. I'd like to mention, he's making a pointless argument. This isn't the question, this isn't the argument, and he's purposefully bringing up random stuff that isn't generally necessary.
Yeah, he's just doing it to invalidate her. There's absolutely no other reason to it.
Have a prostate. Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a biological reality, but it's also social experience, right? So I don't.
And again, Charlie Kirk agrees with this assessment. Whether he wants to pretend he doesn't or not, he does agree with this. Women, people assigned female at birth who transition to being socially identified as men can get pregnant, for example.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
It's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So.
And again, he agrees with that. There's nothing controversial. He's just trying to make her look like an idiot.
It's not really something that you could disagree with either, because her sentence is socially treated as female, or socially treated as women, not biologically female. They're not, trans women aren't biologically female. That's the reason they're trans, but they are socially women. That's just kind of how it works.
And for all intents and purposes, they are women. They're women. Like, you know, there doesn't need to be like this ridiculous line drawn that Republicans are trying to draw. And it's simply these people trying to drive a wedge between different parts of the political spectrum, the left and the far left or whatever. They're trying to drive a wedge and get disagreement sparked so that they won't work together or whatever else, when in reality, we all agree with each other on this. Even Republicans agree with the realities that we're all witnessing. They just want to make people look ridiculous and drive a wedge. That's it.
I think their goal is to differentiate people. So create like an us versus them thing where we're different and we're not all just people.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Which, oh yeah, going into this, another thing I'm going to say, I'm going to assume that you know this stuff.
Okay.
But a lot of people in the audience may not. So I'm going to repeat things that may be common knowledge to us, but may not be to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is how cults operate. It's how cults have operated since day one. this us versus them mentality.
Men can have prostates. Got it. Okay. So you're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
So, yes, men also experience harms from patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yep.
He's trying to...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's what feminism is. You're fighting for equal rights for everyone, not men are better or women are better or men are treated with this specific standard and women are treated with this specific standard.
Yeah, he's trying to narrow the definition of feminism once again to make her look like a radical nutcase. When, again, everyone agrees with this definition. Charlie Kirk agrees with her on how this is defined. He's just trying to make her look like a nutcase, because that's what he does.
Men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt, right? So are we understanding that there are patterns of power? So I would also fight for the rights of men as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure.
Yeah, and here's a common example for how men's rights kind of overlap with feminism. Men tend to not win custody cases as often as women, right? And the reason for that is because women are viewed as the caretakers. So men who love their children and want to, be around their children and everything else are losing out on the opportunity to be in their children's lives to a higher degree, because women are viewed as the caretakers instead of being viewed as equals. So men's rights, things that people, that men's rights activists complain about, that stuff affects women too. It's not just men.
And following that example, I've gotten a lot of, I'll be at a nurse or I'll be with my teachers or whatever, and they'll say, oh, do you want to call mom? Can I text mom? I'm going to call mom. People just automatically assume you're with your mother or whatever when you might be living with your father. It's just not...
Oops, sorry. Yeah, as in our case.
Yeah,
right?
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody always assumes that the mom is the one that's going to, solve the problems.
Even when you correct them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They keep saying it. It's, frustrating. And you know what else? When she was little, I didn't really feel welcome or comfortable to bring her to sleepovers or to have kids over for sleepovers, for example, because the mom is not there and parents don't want to send their kids somewhere where there's just a dad there. Anyway.
Do you think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations.
I also want to say this is not a valid statistic. In the 60s, which is something that he uses often, do you think women are more happy now than they were 50 years ago? In the 60s, women weren't supposed to say, oh, I'm unhappy, I don't like my situation. It was frowned upon, or it was just wrong. You could be in serious danger if you did that. But now we're allowed to report whatever we want because we're not worried that we're in danger from going home to an abusive husband, for example.
Yeah, and additionally, people may laugh at that kind of thing, but that's 100% real. People who would laugh at that don't understand. They don't understand what it was like in the 60s, or even what it's like now. People make jokes about, would women choose to meet the bear in the woods or the man? And most women say the bear. That's kind of ridiculous, honestly. But that fear is real, and it's 100% valid. People feel that way for a reason. Again, the bear would be less safe every single time, but, still, the fear is there.
So, for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen in countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Wow, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized them. That's an interesting one. Yeah, lobotomies were entirely too common. That shit was disturbing. I mean, that stuff was disturbing. I don't swear around Alpha Force Zero.
Yeah. That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny.
He is a colossal scumbag, honestly. What is wrong with him?
He said he didn't know women not to complain?
Yeah, he's being flippant. Of course, he says that women were like the most complaining people on planet Earth 50 years ago.
Oh, because we were fighting for rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
What? Seriously, this is what I'm talking about. Like, what is wrong with this person?
So,
We've always been.
no, hold on a second. Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
I think that
Forget
encourages.
complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why?
Like, this is the thing. He wants to make it out as though... So he's giving us a dichotomy. Either we can have the system that we had in the 60s, or we can have the system that we have now. Women were reporting less happiness, according to him, in the 60s. And, I'm sorry, reporting more happiness in the 60s, reporting less happiness now. He's giving us this dichotomy. But the thing is, there's nothing stopping women from being a housewife today. He's trying to take an option away right now, is what he's doing. They are free to live like they did in the 60s if they choose. It's just that they don't choose to do that. So he's trying to take freedoms away and tell people you'll be happier if you don't have these freedoms. That's what he's doing.
Second, why are suicide rates going up more for women?
I think that
Forget
encourages.
complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why is that?
I think that even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential.
You know why people are less happy today than they were in the 60s? Because, or the 50s really, it's probably what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Because World War II happened and FDR created a period of great prosperity in the United States. And the boomer generation succeeded gloriously. The silent generation, I think, was the one before boomer. They created an incredible economy for boomers. You know that term, strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men, or whatever. The thing that boomers love repeating. In that equation, boomers are the weak men that created bad times. You know, people say that their lives were so much harder back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They had it so much harder than everybody else. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. We have it harder today. People from millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha have it way harder by 1.5 miles than boomers. Oh, I'm sorry. You had to walk to school a mile? Had to get a little exercise? Well, I have to pay $50,000 a year for college. What did you have to pay? I have, whatever, like $30,000 in credit card debt, or I have this or that, or whatever. People have so much medical debt, hundreds of thousands in medical debt. Now, what did you have in the 60s and the 70s? Did you have all those debts? Were you being paid the equivalent of like $18,000 a year at the time? Was that minimum wage for you? No. And minimum wage in the 60s and the 70s was the equivalent of, I believe, $50,000 a year. Let's find out.
I actually did the math for minimum wage today for one of my debate arguments. It's about $15,000 a year, give or take. For
today?
For complete minimum wage, $7.25 an hour.
So I'm just looking it up here. I'm trying to find out what was the equivalent minimum wage in the 60s. Federal minimum wage in the 60s. $15.70 an hour in 1968. $12.70 an hour in 1963. 1960 it was $10.60 an hour. It's $7.25 an hour right now. So it was double what it is today. Double in 1968. You had it hard? Are you serious? I'm sorry you had to walk a mile. That sounds rough. Colossal scumbags.
You at least concede that feminism
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And buying power was completely different at the time. In addition to that, peak buying power of the minimum wage was in 1968 at $1.60 an hour, roughly $15.70 an hour. Things were cheaper. Houses were easier to purchase. Gas was less expensive. Everything was like in addition to like the inflation rate being different, buying power was different.
Happier. Men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other explanations.
Of course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us, where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappy.
Oh my God, who cares about fertility rates? Why are these people so obsessed with fertility rates? Like it matters?
Happiness up. And we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control. And all of a sudden, women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And
Well, you're saying they were given freedom. They were given freedom, and now they're unhappy, huh?
He said, you were trapped in a home. Okay, well, then we'll let you free. And then proceeded to tell us that's a bad thing. This
is propaganda at its finest right here. This is propaganda at its finest. This is how they warp reality to try to turn it into something that it's not, to work to their benefit. They take statistics and they warp them until it makes their position look reasonable. When in reality, if they fairly and honestly represented what these people want. I'm talking, I don't like using the word they, some ambiguous, amorphous they. I prefer to be specific. When people like Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, right-wing ideologues, you know, and all the people that I cover, Kenneth Copeland and Lance Wallnau, everybody, when those people are warping things around, if they were honest about what they actually believe instead of warping things and pretending it's otherwise, nobody would ever vote for a Republican ever again.
I want to see Charlie Kirk live in these conditions, in conditions that he's expecting women to go back to. I want to see him live in those conditions for a solid year, an election year specifically. That way he can't vote. I want him to, that way he can at least kind of understand to get the general picture of why the 1950s and 1960s weren't a good thing for women and why he's, you know, being crazy. I'm sure he knows, but I want him to not be able to deny it.
Oh, I would love to see him live that way for a week. You know that when people experience things outside of their wheelhouse that they hadn't experienced before, they completely change their mind on things. Do you know that Ted Cruz's daughter is bi? And that's why you don't ever hear Ted Cruz talk negatively about the LGBT community.
Elon Musk with his trans daughter. She's awesome, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Vivian?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, I've heard. To clarify, Elon Musk actually denounced Vivian and he says his son died and was killed by the woke mind virus. I don't know if you saw some of that. So he does not support the trans community anymore. He does not, he's estranged. Yeah, he's estranged from Vivian now as a result. But anyway.
Differences between men and women that we should respect, and that deep down a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it.
Then do it. No one's stopping you from doing this. If you want to do it, then do it. But it's not for everybody. People should have choices. That's freedom. That's what freedom is. Charlie Kirk is fundamentally anti-freedom.
And we should support it, and we should say it means nothing if you're going to go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone.
I think I would bring 2 points to that. The first one is just really simple, which is that you can ascribe liberalism all you want as the cause of the unhappiness. I would argue something else. I would say that it's certain economic policy that has very little to do with the social acceptance of alternative lifestyles. I would say that we can recognize that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which
She said swathe instead of swath. It's swath.
There's all kinds of social ills, a lack of social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth, monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritize social health either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms, because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it, do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but I think there are certain
and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not.
We don't objectively know that. We don't objectively know that women can be happier as one thing or another.
Right. I think that what he's objectively saying is that women, this is what he's saying, whether it's actually true.
Right.
He's saying objectively women were happier in the 60s than they are today. And that is his objective perspective here. That's how he's coming to the objective conclusion. I think that's what he's saying, but he's completely full of it.
He said currently women with children in the West are happier than women without children, which happiness...
Oh, did I? Maybe I misunderstood what he said then.
Happiness is very subjective, and I think... Also, I know a lot of women who were very unhappy when they had children, because children are very difficult to take care of.
Yeah. There are, of course, upsides to having 16 children at once, like Michelle Duggar, or 22 or 23, however how many she had. There are upsides having 5 kids at once, but it's hard to have 5 kids at once. I came from a family of 4 kids, and that was wild to have only 4 of us. It's not something that people enjoy, really. It's so much work, it's ridiculous. My aunt, my cousin's mom, she had 3 kids, and in addition to that, had my sister and I stay over. My sister's my half sister. I haven't mentioned that. My half sister and I would stay over at her house in addition to her 3 other kids. So she was trying to care for 5 children. It did not go well, and it's very, very difficult. And it ended with my 2 oldest cousins taking care of us and me taking care of my sister when we'd stay there. Yeah, we came from a family that was just, it was a big house. Well, it wasn't even that big. It was like a 3-bedroom, like ranch style 2-floor house that they bought for $30,000 in 1968, I think. Anyway, it was, we came from that house, and it had people in and out of there all the time. We had uncles and aunts and great uncles and great aunts and cousins and everybody. Like, some of them lived there full time. Some of them lived there part of the time. They'd be dropped off there during the day. So there were always kids in and out of that house, like, all the time. And it was hard to keep track of anything. I honestly really like that style of, like, family whatever.
Like, we're all taking care of each other and we're all allowed there whenever. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I love that so much. And people just walking in, people have keys. They don't, nobody's paying any attention. That's just the best. But we need to get back to that, honestly.
I remember sometimes, because Dad and I we did live there for a little bit. Sometimes I would wake up like super late in the day and I'd walk out into the living room and my cousins are there. I'm like, oh, you're staying here today. Cool. When I was like 6, but I think the only issue with that was, after we moved out and I would still stay there, and when, my aunt wouldn't stay there was only one adult in the upstairs, like, main living area at a time, generally speaking, and he wasn't very good at taking care of kids. He would, this sounds really terrible, he would be drinking, or he'd be sleeping, or he'd be at work. So it kind of
Talk about Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of fell onto the kids to take care of each other after a certain point.
The reason he felt comfortable doing that is because there was always somebody around. Like, you never had to ask if you could bring the kids over. You never had to ask if they could stay because there's somebody there. Yeah,
I mean, our grandparents were always downstairs.
Yeah. And there, if, like, Mama Sue was off doing something, like working or whatever, the Lions Club, the church, then Papa was always there. There's always somebody there. And that was like we need to get community put together like that again for real. I think that, God, I'm sorry, let me say that again. I think that might be one of the big problems in the country, that we're so, like, atomized and split up, but
I think our family, despite its general issues, I think we had a really good, close family. And I honestly can't think back in my childhood and hate how we were living or how I grew up.
Yeah, now none of these people are biologically my family, but they took me in when I lost my biological family. And
they didn't care.
No, and I effectively was the biological family. Like, they called me, Sue called me her son, and and I was the pallbearer in her mom's wedding and everything else, or her mom's funeral, everything. So
the church knew you too. The church was a very, very, very big part of that family because Mama Sue, she was deeply religious. She wasn't deeply religious in a nutcase way. She was deeply religious in a I love everyone, and if you say otherwise, you're crazy way. And
she didn't hate anybody for anything.
Yeah, literally anything. She took care of everyone and made sure everyone was happy, no matter their difference.
Gay or not, and she did deal with gay people regularly. We had a gay family member came over all the time.
It's kind of a hushed thing. But
it is. I didn't name the family member, so.
Yeah. But yeah, no, she even let our family member bring their partner around. Whichever one they were dating, always come to family dinner.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the church was a very big part, and the church all knew my dad as our family. It wasn't ever, Alpha Force Zero's dad is here, or Alpha Force Zero's dad is gonna whatever. It was always Sue's family, Sue's kids.
Yeah. That we need to get back to that. I don't even remember what we were talking about with the Charlie Kirk thing now. But here, let me step back a few seconds, see if we can remind ourselves.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it? Do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to.
Oh yeah, so it's difficult to take care of children. That is absolutely true. I think that's what we were referring to.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the happiness came from being so integrated into the communities. I think maybe the community aspect was the difference rather than the freedom. Maybe freedom made them happy or unhappier. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious that there are other explanations, other reasons, other than the one that Charlie Kirk is zeroing in on and refusing to take another answer for. That's the bottom line here.
Into it, but I think there are certain
and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones.
Oh, and tearing down statues is inherently a bad thing, of course. God, I need to stop interrupting so much. We're getting like 3 seconds in every time. Yeah, tearing down statues is not inherently bad. And trying to fix society is objectively a good thing.
Also, I know a lot of women with kids who are doing the same things that women without kids are.
Right. There is and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Tearing down statues.
Yeah, that's just a lie.
Correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of.
Again, it's a.
There you go.
Miles per
capita, yeah.
That's great.
A little bit of a one-liner. The happy and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we.
Okay, wait. Are tearing down statues? I thought that's where we started. Does that equate to burning down Wendy's? Are those the same things?
I also love burning down Wendy's. That's my pastime, actually. That's what I'm doing this summer.
Okay.
In our country.
Now, and next time a Wendy's burns down, you're going to be blamed for it.
Uh-oh.
The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our country all throughout a single summer. But as a side note, you would agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
Again, he's assuming that is what is causing the happiness, the children. But he's comparing different time periods, different ages in American history, and different areas, like different areas of the world. Even you can't compare those things, even if that were true, which maybe, but I don't know. I haven't looked myself.
I've also never seen someone have more children and be objectively happier. I mean, maybe after their kids are grown up, but I've never seen someone with like 5 babies at once like smiling with joy and shaming people who don't have kids.
Yeah, well, I've seen it, and they're evangelicals, but it's because taking care of children is difficult. It's hard. When you get 5 children, that's insane. People are not happy, period. I'm going to say that. They are not happy with 5 children. They can have happy moments. They can be happy that they have those 5 children, but your life is 15 times harder now. For every child that you have, it gets that much harder. People like that. Fine. That's your way of life. You have the freedom to do that. But don't take my freedom away to not do that kind of thing. Of course, my freedom isn't the freedom that's on the line.
And for the record, he really, really likes having kids. I'm amazing, and no one would ever hate me.
It's 100% true, actually, unironically.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making.
Damn, that was a killer point. I love that. And again, he doesn't believe any of this stuff, truthfully. Like all of the things that he's saying right now, this logic doesn't apply anywhere else in his life. It's just here when he wants to lie and propagandize.
Also, in what situation is he encountering gay people and women who don't want children so much that he feels like he has to argue about it?
Right? This is like such a small subset of the population. You know why? I'll tell you why. It's because he believes in the concept of the problem isn't the disparity between the black community and the white community. That isn't the result of systemic oppression. It's the result of black fathers not being there to take care of their children. Or he believes in the concept of the problem isn't how many guns we have, it's that Christianity is not, permeating society in every single way. The point is that he's coming up with excuses that blame individuals for systemic societal problems that could very easily be solved as a means of not solving those problems. That's what's happening here.
Earn more money correlated at the same age.
There was a point here.
But I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because...
Right. So the only time he ever uses this logic is in those situations when he wants to lie about it and twist it around and turn it into something that it absolutely is not. That's my point.
I think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making. So I don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous. I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been...
Because, of course, she's talking to Charlie Kirk. That's the joke, right?
If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to...
You would say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean...
He is such an idiot. Oh, my God. I don't like insulting people, but this is so stupid, dude.
YouTube, she talks really fast. It's because she's trying to get her point across. She has a limited time to debate in, and also Charlie Kirk likes interrupting, but he hasn't done that yet as much. So, but yeah, she's talking really fast because she needs to get a long point across and doesn't want to run out of time or be interrupted.
Right. Yeah, okay, I guess I'll leave it at that. There's something else I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was, so disregard.
But seriously, but hold on. I mean, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best in the world, and yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something...
Wait, what does he mean by have it the best? What does that mean to him? They have it the best. Because they don't, actually, by his definition. They don't have it the best, right? Didn't he just tell us that women of sub-Saharan Africa have it better because they don't have the option of being free? They're being forced to have children en masse and all of that stuff. So he does recognize that this is the best culture, what we're in right now for women, where they have that freedom. He just likes to pretend otherwise so that he can blame all of the problems on women and morality and try to force a change by blaming people.
Fundamentally wrong here, because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs, and the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just connecting.
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it. Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
She is accurately pointing out that he recognizes that this is a better society for women in every single way than that society. But he's going to pretend otherwise because he wants to force this moral change.
No, again, so I fully, if we want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like, I'm all for that.
Deflecting.
Okay, so he recognized that women are mistreated
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah, and he's deflecting into another subject because he doesn't want to face the reality that he also recognizes this is the best system for women. He doesn't care if it's the best system for women. That's the problem. It isn't the best system for women that he wants to bring us back to, and he knows that. He just wants to force us into this little box, us being Americans, not us as women.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree. We
Absolutely.
actually have agreement.
All right, well, let's step back a little further. Listen one more time.
Or happy, even if they both check the same answer.
No, again, so I fully, if we want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like, I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree.
Absolutely.
We actually have
agree on
agreement.
many things.
And we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right?
Yeah, Muslims in the UK are the... All right, Muslims are the Mexicans of the UK.
that's a crazy statement.
I know it is, but Mexicans are hated in the United States very much by the far right. Same in the UK. The far right hates Muslims. And I'll give them this. Islam is very rigid and refuses to change a lot of the time. And that's a problem. And religious fundamentalism generally is a big problem and shouldn't be celebrated, shouldn't be accepted, should be fought against at all turns. But, you know, it crosses over from opposition to religious fundamentalism. Opposition to religious fundamentalism. It crosses over from that to vile hate pretty quickly on the right in the United Kingdom. And the UK far right, unfortunately, co-opted a lot of support from atheists in the United States who didn't understand the dynamics that were playing out over there in 2013, 2014, particularly on YouTube. Like Sargon of Akkad, he wasn't an atheist YouTuber. He was never an atheist YouTuber. He was like a British political commentator, and he integrated himself into atheist American YouTube by talking shit about Muslims. Again, Islam is destructive and bad. We can all agree that fundamentalist religion is bad, but the people in the UK, like the right-wingers, they go like way off into La La Land with this, and it is completely unacceptable. It turns into racism quickly. I mean, Islam is a belief and not a race. They are racist against these people, and they pretend not to be. They pretend that this is all just, oh, you know, I'm just anti-fundamentalism, to try to back themselves into a more reasonable position when they're pushed on it. The Mott and Bailey. They present this absolutely psychotic, insane view of the world, and when pushed on it, they're like, I just don't like religious fundamentalism.
Agree.
I think that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians in
Well,
the
okay,
UK either.
hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny. Hold on.
That's funny.
Can you show me a single...
So the people on the right, I guess they're the right-wingers, and the ones on the left are the left-wingers? I'm basing this off of the people that are clapping. Is that right?
Hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny.
Well, there's
Hold
a
on.
girl clapping. I guess.
Can you show me a single...
Well, she looks like she's maybe Middle Eastern. Maybe she's a right-winger that believes in all of the same stupid shit Charlie Kirk believes in, sans the racist nonsense about Arabs.
I've noticed people of color who are right wing generally agree with racism. Like, they just kind of pretend that it's not going against them because they're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
I'm using quotation marks there.
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre, seriously. And like disturbing and weird to hear people say some of the stuff that they say, honestly.
Vance's wife is a good example of that, actually, I've noticed.
Yeah, she's Asian, is that right? I'm not sure.
She's Indian.
Indian, okay. Well, that's Asian technically, but
I had to do research on Vance and his book and stuff for my AP Lang class in New York, so I know a lot about his wife now because he's talked a lot about her.
It's really, honestly, deeply sad. And like, I sit here and I think to myself, like, is she a true believer like Vance? Yes. I believe she is.